What happens when Jason Momoa finally decides he's had enough? When the laughter fades, when the cameras keep rolling, and when the world's most charismatic man finally looks across that shiny, well-lit table and says, "No more." Now, let's get into it. The View's studio was alive that morning. The familiar energy hummed through the air. Producers rushing, audience clapping, hosts preparing their cue cards. The show's signature theme faded, and the camera panned across Whoopi Goldberg, Joy Behar, Sunny Hostin, Sarah Haynes, and the day's guest, Jason Momoa. He walked onto the set with that massive grin, the kind that makes the crowd erupt instantly. Long hair tied back, arms rippling under a gray linen shirt, his presence filled the space before he even spoke. The audience went wild, and even the hosts, used to sitting across from A-listers, seemed a little starstruck. "Ladies and gentlemen," Whoopi announced, smiling with her usual grounded authority. "Aquaman himself is in the building." Jason laughed, waving humbly as the applause carried on. But beneath the smiles, something felt off. There was a tension, a subtle current, that no one could quite name yet. "Jason," Joy began with her quick, teasing tone, "we gotta ask. You've been everywhere lately, movies, environmental campaigns, fashion ads, even your own water company. Do you ever take a break, or are you trying to save the planet single-handedly?" Momoa chuckled, leaning forward. "I'm just doing what I love, Joy. I care about this planet. I care about people. That's it." It was a warm start. Easy laughter. The audience loved him. But then Whoopi leaned in. She wasn't smiling this time. "Jason," she said, voice calm but loaded with that unmistakable Whoopi tone. Half wisdom, half challenge. "You talk a lot about caring for people and the planet, but some people think your lifestyle doesn't exactly match that message. You know, flying private jets, luxury homes, all that." The crowd reacted, half gasps, half murmurs. Jason froze for a second, his smile faltering. He looked at her directly. There was no rehearsed charm in his eyes now, just a flicker of surprise. "That's fair," he said slowly. "I get the criticism. I'm not perfect, Whoopi. But I'm trying. You can care and still be learning how to do it right." Whoopi didn't flinch. "But do you think people can take your activism seriously when you live that way? Isn't that the same old Hollywood hypocrisy?" The tone shifted. Sarah Haynes shifted awkwardly in her chair, glancing toward the producers off camera. Joy tried to laugh it off. "Oh, come on, Whoopi, don't scare the poor man away already." But Momoa didn't laugh. His jaw tightened. "You calling me a hypocrite, Whoopi?" "I'm saying people notice," she replied evenly. "They notice when someone says one thing and lives another." The air went still. The audience wasn't clapping anymore. Every sound seemed amplified. The buzz of the cameras, the hum of the lights, even the faint rustle of the cue cards. Jason leaned back, running a hand through his hair. He wasn't angry yet, but his expression said everything. He'd had this conversation too many times. "I grew up with nothing," he said finally, voice lower, calmer. "So yeah, I've got some things now. But I use them to do something good. If you're gonna come at me for trying, that's on you." Joy blinked, visibly uncomfortable now. Okay, let's move on." But Whoopi didn't. "No, I just think if you really want to make change, you've got to walk the walk. You can't just pose next to a recycling bin and call it activism." Jason's eyes flicked up sharply. For a moment, the whole studio seemed to hold its breath. The narrator's voice would have said it best, and that's when something in him broke. Because Jason Momoa, the easygoing, larger-than-life hero everyone adored, wasn't just being interviewed anymore. He was being judged. "You know what, Whoopi?" he said finally, his tone hardening. "I've respected you my whole life. But I don't come here to be lectured. I came here to talk about something that matters." "Then say it," she shot back. "Because right now, all I'm hearing is excuses." A ripple moved through the audience. Half of them gasped, the other half whispered to one another. This wasn't the kind of conversation that usually made it past commercial breaks. Jason's smile returned, but this time it wasn't warm. It was sharp, controlled. "You want to talk hypocrisy? How about a show that claims to empower voices, but shuts down anyone who doesn't fit the script?" The words hit like a slap. Whoopi blinked slowly. Joy looked frozen mid-breath. Sunny Hostin's eyes darted between them like she was silently begging the producers to cut to break. The tension was nuclear now. The cameras stayed locked, red lights glowing. "Jason," Sarah tried, voice shaky. "Maybe we can." But Whoopi lifted her hand, silencing her co-host. "No. Let him finish." Momoa's chest rose and fell. The surfer calm was gone, replaced by something raw, years of frustration, bottled up under that charming exterior. You invite people here to talk, he said, voice steady. But what you really want is for them to agree with you. And if they don't, you tear them apart. I've seen it. Are you saying we're not fair? Whoopi asked, eyebrow raised. I'm saying you're not listening. The words hung in the air. For a moment, no one spoke. The audience shifted in their seats, unsure whether to clap, to boo, or to stay silent. Behind the cameras, a producer's voice whispered urgently, "Go to break. Go to break now." But they didn't. Whoopi leaned back in her chair, arms crossed, that signature look of measured defiance on her face. Jason, this is The View. We have opinions here. If you can't handle that— Oh, I can handle opinions, he cut in sharply. What I can't handle is disrespect. The words came out quieter than anyone expected. But somehow, they hit harder than if he'd yelled. The audience murmured again, nervous, fascinated. Joy reached over, touching Whoopi's arm, whispering, "Maybe we should." But Jason wasn't done. He looked straight into the camera now, breaking the invisible fourth wall. You know, people at home, they see this stuff. They see who's trying to talk and who's trying to talk over them. That line landed. The crowd erupted, some cheering, some booing. It was chaos. The host sat frozen under the bright studio lights, unsure how to reel it back in. Whoopi smiled again, but this time it was thin, brittle. Well, Jason, looks like you've made your point. He nodded slowly. Yeah, I think I have. As the segment finally cut to commercial, the audience was buzzing, half in awe, half in disbelief. And off camera, Jason stood up from his chair, shaking his head as producers swarmed in, whispering, "That was not supposed to happen." He didn't respond. He just turned, glanced one last time toward Whoopi, and said quietly, "I thought you'd be different." Then he walked off the stage. But the story was far from over. What happened next, behind the scenes, after the cameras stopped rolling, would push this confrontation to an entirely new level. The show continues as chaos brews behind the curtain. The second the red on-air light dimmed and the screen faded to commercial, the studio dissolved into noise. Producers rushed from every direction, their headsets crackling with panic. The audience, half stunned, half thrilled, whispered among themselves like they had just witnessed history. Jason Momoa was already halfway down the corridor, his heavy boots echoing through the hall that smelled of makeup powder and hot studio lights. His publicist tried to catch up, breathless. "Jason, wait. Please, we can fix this. They'll cut that part out." But Jason didn't stop. "No, they won't," he said, his voice hard but quiet. "You saw Whoopi's face. That's going viral the second someone leaks it." Inside the studio, Whoopi sat motionless for a moment, staring at the table. Her co-hosts didn't dare speak. Joy Behar broke the silence first, trying to laugh off the tension. Well, that escalated faster than a fast and furious movie. No one laughed. Whoopi slowly stood up, took a sip of her tea, and muttered he wanted real talk. He got it. But Sunny Hostin's brow furrowed. "Whoopi, that wasn't real talk. That was an ambush." "Excuse me." "I mean it," Sunny continued, her voice steady but laced with tension. "You went after him personally. That wasn't about the environment. That was about him." Whoopi stared at her co-host, her expression unreadable. "You think I crossed a line?" Sarah Haynes tried to mediate. Let's all take a breath, okay?" It got heated. "But we're professionals. Let's bring it back." "Bring it back," Sunny said, shaking her head. "The man just walked off the set, Sarah. You can't just bring it back." The audience saw everything. A producer's voice cut through the commotion. "We're live again in 30 seconds. Whoopi turned toward the stage, regaining that iron composure she'd built over decades on camera. "Fine," she said under her breath. "We'll finish the show." The countdown began. 10, 9, 8. Behind the curtain, Jason stood near the exit doors. His publicist was whispering frantically into her phone. "Cancel his next interview." "No, cancel it. He's done with press for the day." Jason leaned against the wall, eyes distant, fists still trembling slightly. The adrenaline hadn't worn off. Every replay of the confrontation flashed in his mind. The challenge in Whoopi's tone, the way the crowd went silent. He muttered to himself, "You talk about respect, then you humiliate people on camera." But deep down, there was something else, disappointment. Jason had grown up watching Whoopi Goldberg. She wasn't just another talk show host to him. She was someone he'd admired for years, someone he thought understood empathy, truth, and humility. Now he wasn't so sure. Back on stage, the cameras flickered back on. The View's signature logo glowed across the screens as Whoopi straightened her posture, the professional mask back in place. "Welcome back," she said, her tone poised but colder than before. Before the break, things got a little intense. The audience laughed nervously. Joy forced a smile. "That's one way to put it." Whoopi continued. "We respect all our guests, even when conversations get tough. And I think we all know Jason Momoa is passionate. Sometimes passion brings fire." The camera panned across the table. Sunny's expression said it all. This wasn't over. Behind the scenes, a stagehand whispered to another, "She's spinning it already." But Jason hadn't left yet. He was standing just behind the curtain now, close enough to hear every word. That's when he turned to his publicist. "Get me 5 minutes. I'm going back out." She froze. "Jason, don't. This is live television. If you go back out there." I'm not letting her rewrite that moment. And before she could stop him, he walked back toward the lights. The audience gasped as Jason Momoa reappeared, larger than life, back in the studio doorway. Whoopi blinked, startled. Joy's jaw dropped. "Oh, he's back," Joy whispered under her breath. Jason didn't sit down. He just stood there, center stage, facing the table. "Before you wrap this up," he said, his voice echoing through the stunned silence, "I need to say something." Whoopi tried to regain control. "Jason, this segment's over." "Not yet, it's not." He stepped closer, the room thick with tension again. Even the audience stayed completely silent this time. "You said passion brings fire," he said. "You're right. But what you call passion, I call disrespect. I came here to talk about helping people, not defending myself against your assumptions." Whoopi met his stare. "Jason, you came to the View. This is what we do. We ask questions. There's a difference between a question and an accusation." Joy looked between them helplessly. "Can someone please cue another commercial?" But no one moved. Jason continued, his tone softer now, but every word deliberate. "I've been to war zones, refugee camps, ocean cleanups. I've seen real people struggle to survive. And when I talk about it, I'm not trying to look good. I'm trying to make them seen. So when someone like you, someone I admired, turns that into a punchline, yeah, I take that personally." Whoopi's eyes softened for just a fraction of a second. "Jason, I wasn't mocking you. Then what were you doing?" A heavy silence filled the air. The crew behind the cameras exchanged glances. They had no idea what to do. Finally, Whoopi exhaled. "Maybe. I went too far." The crowd murmured again, this time in surprise. Jason nodded once. "That's all I wanted." He turned to leave again, but this time, before stepping away, he looked at the audience. "Don't ever let anyone tell you caring is fake," he said. "If you're trying to do something good, even if you fail, keep trying. The world's already got enough people tearing others down." Applause erupted, genuine, rolling through the studio like thunder. Joy clapped too, awkwardly at first, then with real energy. Sarah smiled with relief. Even Sunny leaned forward, looking proud. But Whoopi just sat there, motionless, her expression unreadable. Jason gave a small nod, then left for real this time, walking through the crowd, shaking a few hands, the audience cheering him out like a hero leaving a battlefield. When the doors closed behind him, Whoopi finally spoke, almost to herself. "Maybe he's right." Sunny looked at her. "He is." Outside, in the hallway, Jason exhaled for the first time in minutes. His publicist finally caught up to him. "You just made headlines for a week." He half smiled. "Good. Maybe now people will talk about what actually matters." But as he disappeared into the elevator, cameras from staff phones caught flashes of his departure. Within seconds, producers were texting executives, and snippets of the confrontation were already circulating online. The battle between Jason Momoa and Whoopi Goldberg was no longer confined to that studio. It was about to explode across the internet, where every word, every glare, and every silence would be dissected. And this time, no edit button could save anyone. Act of this storm begins not in the studio, but in the echo that followed. By the time Jason Momoa's SUV pulled away from the ABC building, his phone was already lighting up like a flare in the dark. Notifications, calls, messages, agents, friends, journalists. The internet had done what it always does. It had turned a moment into a movement. Clips from The View, unedited, shaky, recorded on audience phones, were already flooding TikTok, X, and Instagram. The most viral one showed the exact moment Jason said, "You invite people here to talk, but what you really want is for them to agree with you." That line alone was slicing through social media like a blade. Hashtags exploded. Hashtag Momoa versus Whoopi. Hashtag respect the guest. Hashtag Jason fires back. In less than an hour, Jason's name was trending in over 15 countries. Millions of views. Hundreds of thousands of comments. Some called him a hero for standing his ground. Others accused him of mansplaining or disrespecting a legend. It was chaos. Beautiful, burning chaos. Inside the View's control room, the producers huddled around monitors, watching the storm unfold in real time. Their phones buzzed with executives from higher up, panic and damage control mode activated. Cut the rerun. We need a statement. Do not take the video down. Spin it as a heated but honest exchange. But even before the network could react, Whoopi had already gone quiet. In her dressing room, she sat before the mirror, makeup half-smeared, eyes heavy. The chatter of crew and staff filled the halls, but she barely heard it. Her phone was blowing up too, messages from friends, fans, critics. One stood out. "You were out of line, Whoopi. That wasn't you." She locked the phone and sighed deeply. She had faced controversy before, countless times. But this felt different. This time, she didn't just clash with a guest. She might have misjudged someone who came in with real heart. The door creaked open. Joy peeked in. "Hey, you okay?" Whoopi didn't look up. "You ever say something you didn't mean, but meant it anyway?" Joy raised an eyebrow. "All the time." "Yeah," Whoopi muttered. "That's the problem." Meanwhile, across town, Jason was sitting alone in his hotel room, the city lights of New York glowing like distant embers behind him. He'd shut his phone off hours ago, but the TV kept replaying clips of him. Different angles, edited headlines, out-of-context quotes. Jason Momoa explodes on Whoopi Goldberg. Viewers divided after tense exchange. Is Jason Momoa Hollywood's new rebel? He rubbed his face, exhausted. All he'd wanted was a real conversation about the environment, about the world's problems. Yet somehow, he had become the story. A soft knock on the door broke the silence. His publicist entered, laptop in hand. "You should see this." She turned the screen toward him. Twitter. Millions of mentions. But one video caught his eye, a fan edit titled Jason Momoa, standing up for the truth. It had over 5 million views. And it wasn't angry or sensational. It was raw. It showed the moment he stood his ground, cut with footage of him cleaning beaches, speaking at conservation events, hugging kids at shelters. Jason watched quietly. For the first time since the confrontation, he smiled. "People get it," his publicist said softly. "They're seeing what really happened." Jason nodded. "I didn't go there to fight. I just wanted to talk about the cause." She hesitated. "Are you going to respond publicly?" He thought for a long moment. "Not yet. Let them talk first." Back at the studio, ABC executives were in damage control. They held emergency meetings about optics, contracts, and ratings. But as much as they wanted to contain it, the truth was, they couldn't have scripted this better if they'd tried. The next morning, the views numbers doubled. Every clip, every mention, every online debate drove more traffic to their show. The network loved it. The headlines called it the most talked about episode of The View in years. But inside, things weren't as triumphant. When Whoopi entered the studio, the usual morning buzz felt colder. Some crew members avoided eye contact. Others whispered. She knew that look. They were waiting for her to apologize on air. Before the show started, Sunny approached her. "We need to talk." Whoopi looked up from her notes. "About what?" "About yesterday. You crossed a line, Whoopi. We can't pretend it didn't happen." Whoopi sighed. "I already said maybe I went too far." "Maybe isn't enough," Sunny replied firmly. Jason showed respect, even when he pushed back. "You're the one who made it personal." Whoopi stared at her for a long time, then finally said, "You want me to apologize on live television? I think the world's waiting for it." The countdown to showtime began again. The hosts took their seats. The audience filed in, buzzing with anticipation. They all knew what they were there for. As the theme music faded, the camera panned to Whoopi. For a second, she hesitated. Then she spoke. "Yesterday," she began, her voice calm, "we had a very passionate exchange with our guest, Jason Momoa. And I want to start today by saying this. Sometimes, when you've been in this chair as long as I have, you forget that passion can sound like hostility. And that's not fair to anyone. So, Jason, if you're watching, I hear you." The audience clapped softly. Whoopi continued. "You care deeply about this planet, and whether we agree on everything or not, that deserves respect. It was rare, Whoopi Goldberg, apologizing on air. And though her tone was still firm, there was a weight in her eyes. When the segment ended, Sonny leaned over and whispered, "That was big of you." Whoopi gave a small nod. He earned it. But even as the applause faded, the internet wasn't ready to move on. The debate had grown larger than the two of them. It had become a cultural moment. Commentators, podcasts, and journalists dissected the exchange for days. Some called it a clash of generations, an older voice of Hollywood versus the new, raw authenticity of the modern star. Others said it was about accountability, about who gets to speak and who gets shut down. And amid all the noise, Jason finally posted something on his Instagram. Just a black and white photo of the ocean, with a caption that read, "Fire cleanses. Respect rebuilds. No hard feelings, only lessons. Be kind, even when it's hard." That post got over 10 million likes in 24 hours. News anchors praised him for his grace. Fans rallied behind him. Even people who had never cared about The View were suddenly watching the clips just to understand what had everyone talking. But perhaps the most unexpected moment came 3 days later, when a short clip aired at the end of The View's Friday episode. Whoopi, sitting at her table, looked into the camera with a faint smile. "Next week," she said, "Jason Momoa will be returning to The View. And this time, we're going to finish the conversation we started about the planet and about how we talk to each other." The crowd gasped, then erupted into applause. Backstage, producers whispered to each other in disbelief. He agreed to come back? And he had. Because for Jason, it was never about winning. It was about being heard. And this time, when he returned to that same table, things would be very different. The air in the studio carried a weight that no one could quite define. What had started as a tense exchange between two strong voices had now become a televised moment that would echo far beyond the walls of The View. Jason Momoa sat back in his chair, his chest still rising with the rhythm of restrained adrenaline. Whoopi Goldberg remained unmoving, her expression a mixture of disbelief and the hardened calm of someone who has seen chaos before. The audience was still silent, caught between awe and discomfort. You could feel it, that collective breath being held, as if they feared one more word might set off another explosion. Jason leaned forward, his voice softer now, but each word carried the weight of conviction. "Whoopi, I respect what you've done in this industry. You've opened doors. You've fought for people's voices. But don't turn around and silence mine, because I'm not saying what fits the narrative." Whoopi looked up, eyes narrowing slightly. "Jason, nobody's silencing you," she replied, though even she knew the tension in her tone betrayed that claim. "We're just calling things what they are." Jason tilted his head, his eyes piercing through the tension. "Then call this what it is, a man speaking his truth. You don't have to agree, but you do have to let me finish it." There was a ripple of murmurs through the crowd. Sunny Hostin looked between them, her hand raised as though trying to calm a storm with a gesture. All right, let's take a step back," Sunny said cautiously. "We're all passionate here. Jason's trying to talk about the impact of Hollywood, about the pressure it puts on men, women, everyone." But Jason interrupted, his tone rising again. "No, I'm talking about respect. About how quickly we tear people down when they say something real." He turned toward the audience, his voice resonant and raw. "I've made mistakes. We all have. But the only way we get better is if we stop pretending that every opinion needs to be destroyed before it's even understood." The camera caught Whoopi's reaction. Her eyes narrowed slightly, her lips pressed together. It wasn't anger this time, it was something deeper. Realization. Maybe even a flicker of respect. The tension broke just a little. The audience, still unsure, began to clap, hesitant at first, then louder, until the applause became undeniable. The sound filled the studio, the kind of sound that doesn't just support a guest, but shifts the entire energy of the room. Whoopi leaned forward, speaking now with a measured calm. "You know, Jason," she said, "you've got guts. Not a lot of people would sit here and say that to my face on live television." Jason smiled slightly, not arrogant, just grounded. "I wasn't trying to pick a fight, Whoopi. I was trying to finish a thought." A beat of silence. Then, surprisingly, Whoopi nodded. "Fair enough. That single phrase, fair enough, hit like a truce flag being raised in the middle of a battlefield." The audience erupted into applause again, this time with genuine warmth. Even Joy Behar let out a relieved laugh, shaking her head. "Well, damn. That was something," she muttered into her microphone, earning more laughter from the crowd. But beneath the humor, there was still an undercurrent, something unresolved. The kind of silence that lingers long after the applause fades. When the show cut to commercial, the cameras pulled back, the lights dimmed slightly, and the audience's chatter filled the space. Jason sat quietly, hands clasped. Whoopi stood, adjusted her seat, and, after a long pause, extended her hand toward him. Jason looked up, surprised for a moment, then accepted it. The handshake wasn't warm, but it was honest. Two professionals acknowledging that they had crossed a line, but maybe, just maybe, they'd both made a point worth hearing. What no one knew was that moment, the handshake, the silence, the glare of studio lights, would soon explode across social media like wildfire. Within minutes of the clip airing, the View's official accounts were flooded. Jason Momoa puts Whoopi in her place. Whoopi shuts down Aquaman. Hollywood chaos live on TV. Different narratives, same storm. Twitter threads analyzed every facial expression. TikTok clips replayed Jason's words in dramatic slow motion, and YouTube reaction videos popped up faster than the episode could finish airing. Half the internet applauded Jason for standing his ground. The other half accused him of disrespecting a legend. The divide was loud, passionate, unstoppable. But behind the screens, Jason's phone buzzed with messages from fellow actors, directors, even fans. Some told him he was brave. Others warned him that he'd gone too far. And in a quiet moment, alone in his trailer after leaving the studio, Jason stared at the reflection in his phone's dark screen. Not of Aquaman, not of a celebrity, but of a man who had finally said what he believed, no matter the cost. He exhaled slowly. Somewhere inside, there was peace. He had spoken his truth. Whatever storm followed, he'd face it head-on. Meanwhile, Whoopi sat in her dressing room, the hum of the television echoing faintly in the background. She replayed the moment in her head, Jason's words, his tone, his conviction. There was frustration, sure, but there was also respect. "He's not wrong," she muttered under her breath. "He's just raw." She smiled faintly, then shook her head. "He'll learn." By evening, major entertainment outlets had picked up the story. Jason Momoa versus Whoopi Goldberg. The View's tense on-air showdown. Clips dominated trending charts. Analysts and commentators dissected every line, every look. And somewhere in the chaos of opinions, something genuine had cut through. Authenticity. Because that's what this was all about. Two powerful voices clashing not out of hate, but out of conviction. The next morning, Jason posted a short message to his fans. Just 3 words. Respect. Always. Aloha. The message spread like fire. Comment sections flooded with love, debate, and emotion. People were talking, not just about the argument, but about honesty, media pressure, and the power of staying true to yourself. And that's the thing about moments like this. They live beyond the screen. They remind us that fame doesn't shield you from truth. It amplifies it. Jason Momoa didn't just fire back. He made the world listen. And now it's your turn. What do you think? Did Jason cross the line, or did Whoopi? Was this about ego or authenticity? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because this story doesn't end here. Make sure you hit subscribe to Prime Narrator and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next explosive moment from Hollywood's most unpredictable live shows. Because one thing's for sure, this wasn't the last time The View would go off script.